In it, the report says that the DOJ would have had enough evidence to convict President-elect Trump had he not been elected president. This was the investigation into President-elect Trump's possible efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The report includes interviews with 250 witnesses voluntarily and testimony from 55 people before the grand jury, as well as executing dozens of subpoenas and search warrants. Smith, who resigned last week, said he stands behind his decision to bring criminal charges against Trump. The case against Trump was dropped following his election win due to a long-standing Justice Department policy prohibiting the prosecution of a sitting president.
Jack Smith recently handed Congress what they need to push for Trump's impeachment, and it's pretty comprehensive. His final report is out, and he testified that he has solid evidence pointing to Trump's election interference and obstruction of justice. The only thing keeping Trump from facing serious consequences is that he managed to win the election and get back into office before those criminal cases could wrap up. That's really the crux of it.
President Trump this afternoon calling for the prosecution of former special counsel Jack Smith. Today, Smith defended his work before the House Judiciary Committee. He believes President Trump broke the law.
President Trump was charged because the evidence established that he willfully broke the law, the very laws he took an oath to uphold.
Smith was appointed in 2022 to lead investigations into the president's alleged interference in the 2020 election and alleged mishandling of classified documents. Republicans investigating Smith say his probe was politically motivated.
Democrats have been going after President Trump for 10 years, for a decade. And the country should never, ever forget what they did.
President Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges that Smith brought in both cases, and both were dropped after his re-election.
This afternoon, President Trump called for Jack Smith, the former special counsel, to be prosecuted. Smith defended his work today in front of the House Judiciary Committee, insisting that Trump broke the law. He pointed out that Trump was charged because there was clear evidence that he deliberately violated the laws he swore to uphold. Smith took on his role in 2022, leading investigations into Trump's alleged interference in the 2020 election and his handling of classified documents. Meanwhile, some Republican lawmakers are claiming that Smith's investigation was driven by political motives, stating that Democrats have been targeting Trump for over a decade, and that's a pretty loaded statement. President Trump recently pleaded not guilty to all the charges brought against him by Jack Smith, and surprisingly, those charges got dropped after his re-election. Now, Smith didn't actually say the word impeach in his testimony, but let's be real, he came pretty darn close. He laid out all the evidence, explained the alleged crimes, and made sure lawmakers understood that no one is above the law. The big takeaway was that since the Department of Justice can't prosecute a sitting president, it's Congress's turn to step in. That's about as close as you can get to demanding impeachment without actually saying it, and lawmakers definitely got the hint. Now, Democrats in Congress are jumping on Smith's report to fuel their renewed impeachment efforts. They're making a strong case, arguing that a special counsel spent years investigating Trump and found strong criminal evidence, but he's not being prosecuted simply because he's president. So, they believe Congress has a constitutional responsibility to hold him accountable. And here's where things get interesting. Trump is totally freaking out over this. Smith's report isn't just some partisan hit piece. It's an official document from a respected prosecutor detailing all the crimes Trump allegedly committed, and now it's out in the open for everyone to see. This document is part of the permanent record, and Congress can refer to it when considering impeachment. The first part of Smith's report dives into the whole election interference situation from the year 2020. The conclusion is pretty harsh. Smith pointed out that voters essentially spared Trump from being convicted by re-electing him before any jury could weigh in. Think about that. Voters saved him not because he's innocent or the evidence is flimsy, but because he won and regained presidential immunity before anyone could make a final decision on his actions. Smith also stated he had evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump participated in a criminal conspiracy to overturn the election and obstruct the transfer of power. That standard is serious. It indicates he believed he could have won a conviction in court if given the chance, but that opportunity vanished once Trump became president again. Then in January, Smith went before Congress and didn't hold back, asserting all these points about Trump's involvement. Jack Smith has laid out some tough accusations against Trump. He claims that Trump played a key role in inciting the January 6th incident, aiming to take advantage of the violence that unfolded. Smith made it clear to lawmakers that the law demands accountability, directly challenging Congress to step up and do its part. It became evident that he's saying to them, "I've gathered the evidence, now it's your turn." Some committee members took it to heart, declaring that if the Department of Justice won't take action, then impeachment falls on them as part of their constitutional responsibilities. They plan to utilize the evidence Smith gathered to hold Trump accountable through Congress. This isn't just talk. Impeachment resolutions are already in play, like House Resolution 343 from last year, which lays out 7 articles. Now, with Jack Smith's thorough investigation behind them, Democrats are feeling emboldened. Trump finds himself in a tough spot. He believed that scoring a victory in the election would wipe the slate clean regarding his legal troubles, and to some extent it did. His criminal cases got dropped, and he's not on trial at the moment. However, the evidence didn't just vanish. Smith's report is out there for anyone to see. His testimony is documented, and Congress can tap into all of this for impeachment. So essentially, Trump has swapped facing criminal prosecution for the looming threat of impeachment. With the midterms in 2026 around the corner, if Democrats regain control of the House, he might be in hot water again. The catch is, Smith's evidence isn't going anywhere. It's all on record, meticulously detailed, and thoroughly vetted by the DOJ. It covers a wide range of topics, from the fake elector scheme to the January 6th attack and Trump's attempts to pressure state officials to flip election results. Congress can easily pull from this already established case. Trump is acutely aware of the stakes. That's why he's been urging Republicans to secure the midterms to evade impeachment. He knows that if Democrats take over, they'll inherit Smith's extensive investigation. All the groundwork is laid out for them. They won't be starting from scratch. Now, diving deeper into what exactly Jack Smith discovered reveals why this whole situation is significant. His investigation focused primarily on 2 areas: Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election and his careless handling of classified documents. Each of these investigations turned up substantial evidence of wrongdoing, but both efforts essentially hit a wall when Trump assumed the presidency. It's time to really dig into the election interference aspect, because that forms the crux of Smith's first volume. Smith's final report is quite a hefty document, spanning hundreds of pages and laying out the details of how Trump attempted to overturn the 2020 election. It dives into how Trump's team concocted fake electors in multiple states to submit fraudulent electoral votes, not to mention the pressure he put on state officials like Georgia's Secretary of State to dig up votes. There was even a plan for Mike Pence to refuse to certify the election. Smith concluded without a doubt that there was solid evidence of Trump being part of a criminal conspiracy to overturn the election and obstruct the transfer of power. That beyond a reasonable doubt standard is the highest bar in criminal law, meaning Smith was confident he could present a compelling case to a jury for a conviction. However, the case never actually went to trial because while the prosecution was making strides, Trump was busy running for president again, and he won. The Department of Justice has this long-standing rule that doesn't allow them to prosecute a sitting president. So Smith had to drop the charges. In his final report, he even noted that voters essentially saved Trump from conviction by re-electing him before the case could conclude. It's a striking realization. Trump isn't considered innocent. He's just managed to stay free because he won an election. His strategy was to get back into office so he could avoid prosecution, and it worked. This situation raises eyebrows about the state of our country, where someone can allegedly commit crimes to hold on to power and then use their presidency as a shield against prosecution. Now jumping over to Smith's testimony in front of Congress, that's where things start to heat up. In January 2026, he was called to testify, and the Democrats on the committee hit him with direct questions about Trump's actions. Smith didn't hold back or sugarcoat anything. He stated plainly that Trump engaged in criminal conduct. He mentioned that Trump instigated the events of January 6th with the intent to manipulate the violence for his own political gain. Then Smith dropped a crucial point, telling lawmakers that the law demanded accountability. It wasn't just a suggestion, it was a clear requirement. He made it clear that he had found evidence of crimes, and since he couldn't prosecute as long as Trump was president, it fell on Congress to take action. In that hearing room, everyone caught on to the vibe, even if Smith didn't drop the word impeach explicitly. He was laying out the evidence like a gift to Congress, signaling that they were the ones who needed to step up. With presidential immunity blocking the way for the criminal justice system, it became clear that Congress had to rely on their constitutional powers, and impeachment is the main tool for holding a president accountable. The Democrats took this message to heart, with several committee members declaring that if the Department of Justice couldn't take action, then Congress had a responsibility to jump in. They argued that Smith's evidence should bind Congress to act on impeachment because if Trump committed crimes to disrupt an election and the only reason he's not facing prosecution is his status as president, then not acting would be a failure to uphold the rule of law. Now, it's crucial to dive into what Smith's evidence actually outlines, as the details really pack a punch. The report highlights Trump's diverse attempts to flip the election results. First off, there's the fake elector scheme, where Trump's crew cooked up phony electors in 7 states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These fake electors signed off on documents pretending they were the real deal, aiming to create confusion and give Pence a reason to hold up or reject the legitimate electoral votes. Then we have Trump's pressure tactics on state officials. One of the most well-known instances is his infamous call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, where he insisted, "I just want to find 11,800 votes." This wasn't an isolated incident. He hounded officials in various states to overturn results, or skip certifying Biden's victory altogether. Next, there's the pressure he applied to Mike Pence. Trump spent weeks trying to persuade Pence that he could single-handedly reject electoral votes. When Pence stood his ground, Trump didn't hold back his frustration, publicly slamming him and egging on the mob on January 6th to focus on Pence. There were even tweets from Trump during the chaos, criticizing Pence for lacking the courage to do what he claimed was necessary. Lastly, there's the day itself, January 6th. Smith's report details how Trump's speech that morning was meant to send the crowd charging toward the Capitol. He knew the crowd was armed, yet told security to allow them through. What's more, Trump watched the attack unfold on television and chose not to intervene. So, let's break this down. Smith's report lays out some heavy stuff about Trump's actions around the election, claiming he wanted to use the chaos to pressure Congress and Vice President Pence into flipping the election results. There's no guesswork involved. It's backed by citations, witness accounts, and physical evidence. This isn't just someone's opinion, it's a clear record of what went down. Smith concluded that Trump's actions amounted to a criminal conspiracy aimed at defrauding the United States and obstructing an official process. Then there's the whole classified documents situation, which is detailed in the second part of Smith's report. This case is a bit easier to understand, really. The FBI showed up at Mar-a-Lago with a search warrant and found boxes filled with classified documents. Some of these were marked as top secret, dealing with military operations and nuclear capabilities, information that absolutely shouldn't have been at Trump's home. What makes it all worse is Trump's reaction post-search. He didn't fully cooperate with the investigation and allegedly told aides to hide or destroy documents. Plus, he made false statements about what he did and didn't return. That's all potential obstruction right there. Smith found enough evidence to make a solid case that Trump committed crimes related to handling those documents and obstructing the inquiry. Unfortunately, when Trump became president, the case got thrown out. So we never saw a trial or had a jury going through all the evidence. Smith's report just states that he had enough for a conviction, but the case got buried once Trump won the election. Now Congress has this entire report, which covers both investigations. They have Smith's sworn testimony stating that Trump engaged in criminal acts and his clear assertion that the law demands accountability for Trump. This gives Congress all they need for impeachment proceedings. Here's where things get tricky for Trump. Sure, criminal cases can be dropped based on procedural issues, or if prosecutors make a slip-up and witness stories can shift. But Smith's report is out there. It's public and it's not going away. Congress can pull from it anytime. So even though Trump sidestepped a criminal trial by winning the election, he hasn't escaped accountability altogether. Instead of facing a courtroom, he's now dealing with Congress, and it's the House and Senate that will be calling the shots. So here's a situation we really need to talk about. Instead of just waiting for a verdict, we're looking at impeachment and the possibility of Trump being removed from office. And honestly, he's pretty scared about it since he's already been through the impeachment process 2 times before. Sure, both times he got saved by Republicans in the Senate, but those earlier cases were pretty rushed. There wasn't years of digging into details like there is now. This time, it's a whole different ball game. Trump's facing a thorough investigation led by Jack Smith, which means Democrats have all the information at their fingertips. We're talking about every witness, every document, and every single piece of evidence ready to go. It would be the most detailed and well-documented impeachment in American history. That's why Trump is all over Republicans right now, telling them they absolutely have to win the midterms or he's in serious trouble. He knows that if the Democrats take control of the House, they won't hesitate to use Smith's findings against him. The evidence is so strong that even some Republicans might find it hard to back him up. Now, we can't overlook the role of the Supreme Court in all of this because it definitely sets the stage. Trump's criminal cases faced delays mostly because the Supreme Court had to sort out what presidential immunity really meant, and they took their sweet time doing it. They ended up saying that presidents have broad immunity for their official actions. Those delays actually worked in Trump's favor because by the time the cases were ready for trial, he had already won the election. So in a way, the Supreme Court kind of shielded him from prosecution. However, there's a twist. That decision also left Congress as the only avenue for accountability. Since the court decided you can't prosecute a sitting president, it created a scenario where someone needs to step up and hold the president accountable for any wrongdoing. The Constitution hands that power to Congress through the impeachment process. This means Trump's immunity isn't ironclad, it just moves the responsibility from the courts to Congress. If Congress sees Smith's evidence as strong enough and decides to act, there's no way Trump can stop it. The Supreme Court can't interfere with impeachment. It's purely a political issue. Looking ahead to the midterms in 2026, this is where things get really critical. Right now, Republicans are in control of the House, and they're not going to touch impeachment. But if Democrats manage to take over, we're staring down the possibility of impeachment becoming very real. Trump would be back in the fight for his presidency all over again. Let's get into the heart of this situation, because while there's a lot of legal jargon flying around, the main story is actually pretty straightforward. Jack Smith uncovered strong evidence that Trump committed serious offenses. These crimes relate to trying to overturn the 2020 election and mishandling classified documents. When we say beyond a reasonable doubt, it means Smith is confident he could convince a jury of Trump's guilt for these actions. Now, here's the kicker. Trump dodged prosecution solely because he managed to win the election and became president once again. There's a rule stating that sitting presidents can't be prosecuted, which forced Smith to dismiss the charges at that time. Essentially, Trump's defense was simply to say, "Make me president and I'll be untouchable." And it worked. He's not off the hook because he's innocent. He's off the hook due to presidential immunity. Moving on, Smith's final report and his testimony to Congress laid out a sort of blueprint for impeachment. He might not have explicitly said the word impeach, but he made it clear to lawmakers that Trump had engaged in criminal actions and that he should be held accountable. Since the Department of Justice can't take action, Congress is left as the sole avenue for accountability, with impeachment being their primary tool. And guess what? Democrats are already jumping on Smith's findings to advocate for impeachment. There are impeachment resolutions already in the works, and Smith's report gives those actions some real credibility. If the Democrats regain control of the House in the year 2026, they'll have everything they need to move forward with impeachment using Smith's investigation as their base. Let's talk about the evidence Smith gathered. He spent years on Trump's case, leading a team of prosecutors and FBI agents. He talked to hundreds of witnesses and sifted through thousands of documents. His conclusion? Trump committed multiple serious crimes that in any other situation would lead to criminal prosecution and possibly prison time. The case about election interference alone is alarming. Smith laid out details about Trump's scheme involving fake electors, his pressure tactics on state officials, his attempts to sway Mike Pence, and his role in sparking the January 6th incident. All of this adds up to a criminal conspiracy aimed at defrauding the United States and obstructing an official proceeding. On top of that, the situation with the classified documents is just as serious. Trump took classified materials when he left office and stored them improperly. He even showed them to others. So, here's the scoop. There's been some drama involving a former president who apparently didn't return certain documents and even told his aides to hide or destroy evidence. That's serious stuff, and it definitely counts as criminal behavior. But here's the twist. The special counsel didn't just throw around accusations. He actually collected evidence and built cases that he thought would lead to convictions. Unfortunately, those cases never made it to court because the former president won the election and regained what's known as presidential immunity. Now, presidential immunity sounds like a superhero cape, but it doesn't mean he gets a free pass forever. The Supreme Court has said that presidents have this broad immunity for their official acts, but that doesn't mean they can't face accountability. It's just that they can't be criminally prosecuted while they're in office. They can still be impeached, which is super important to keep in mind. So while this immunity shields him from being prosecuted by the Department of Justice, it doesn't save him from impeachment by Congress. Smith's evidence doesn't vanish just because the former president can't be hit with criminal charges. Congress can still dive into that evidence, hold hearings, and potentially use it as grounds for impeachment. That's exactly what the Democrats are gearing up to do. Several lawmakers have been vocal about their belief that since the DOJ can't act due to this presidential immunity, Congress has a duty to step in. They're saying that the evidence collected by Smith creates a solid reason to pursue impeachment. There are even resolutions already lined up, like HRS 353 from last year, which lays out 7 articles of impeachment against him. And now, with this special counsel investigation backing those resolutions, the Democrats have a lot to work with. They don't need to start from scratch proving any crimes since Smith has already done that legwork. They just have to showcase his findings and make the argument that it all adds up to a case for impeachment. Now, if we zoom out to the political side of things, it's pretty clear that the former president is aware that his future depends on the Republicans hanging on to control of the House. If the Democrats manage to pull off a win in 2026, they'll have subpoena power and the authority to dig deep into the investigations, plus they'll have access to Smith's entire case file. That means they can hold hearings, call in witnesses, and rally public support for impeachment. The former president has even gone on record saying that if Republicans lose the midterms, impeachment is going to come knocking at his door. He's not shy about admitting that this whole thing circles back to him. Trump is really making it clear that he sees the midterms as crucial for his safety. He's basically telling the Republicans, you need to keep me safe by winning. It's a pretty bold admission from him. He's recognizing that the only thing keeping him out of impeachment right now is congressional control. And honestly, he might be onto something there. Since the evidence against him is pretty solid, Jack Smith has laid everything out clearly. The Democrats don't need to guess or build a shaky case. They have a former special counsel testifying under oath that Trump engaged in criminal behavior. Along with that, there's a detailed report that documents everything, plus the constitutional tools necessary to hold him accountable. Right now, Trump's whole game plan is centered on making sure the Republicans remain in power. As long as they control the House, impeachment is off the table. You can bet that Republicans won't go after their own guy based on a special counsel report. They'll brush it off as just politics and protect him, no matter what the findings say. But if the Democrats manage to win, that's when things could get serious. They'd have Smith's report to build an impeachment case, hold hearings, and bring everything to light for the public. Now, whether Trump would actually be removed is another story. Impeachment happens in the House, but removal takes a Senate conviction, and even if the Democrats take the House, they probably won't hold the 2/3 majority needed in the Senate. So he's likely to dodge that consequence, just like he did during his first two impeachments. But surviving those processes doesn't mean he comes out on top. A third impeachment would be a historic moment, commanding headlines for months, causing significant political damage, and reinforcing the idea that he's a criminal who evades justice through loopholes. Now let's think about what all this means for Trump's legacy. Even if he never sees a conviction or gets booted from office, there's a special counsel report now in the public record declaring he committed crimes. That's not something that just fades away. That's forever etched in history. Future generations will read Smith's report and draw their own conclusions about how Trump behaved. His defenders might argue, well, he was never convicted in court, so he can't be called guilty. And sure, that has a ring of truth to it. But Smith's report really explains why he wasn't convicted. It's because he became president and gained immunity, not because he was innocent. It's honestly hard to believe that some people think a president can just skate by after winning an election, using that victory as a shield against any wrongdoing. That sets a really dangerous precedent. If leaders can commit crimes, dodge consequences just by getting reelected, and then act like they're innocent because they were never found guilty, it's a serious blow to the justice system. It's not fair and certainly not equal justice. It creates a system where someone gets special treatment that the rest of us don't. That's exactly why Democrats are really pushing for impeachment. They argue if the criminal justice system can't hold him accountable, then Congress has to step in. Otherwise, it sends a message that presidents are above the law, free to commit any crime as long as they can secure re-election. That's just not a sustainable foundation for a democracy. Smith's recent testimony highlighted this issue clearly. He put it out there. The law requires that Trump be held accountable. He's telling Congress, this is your responsibility now. He's done the digging, found the evidence, but he's unable to prosecute. So the ball is in their court. Looking ahead, the midterms in the year 2026 will be the real battleground. Trump needs Republican victories to block any impeachment efforts from the Democrats. He's totally focused on this, making it his main goal. Every rally, every endorsement, and every political strategy revolves around holding on to the House. On the flip side, Democrats are using Trump's questionable actions as a key part of their campaign strategy. They're selling themselves on being the party of accountability, promising voters that if they gain control of the House, they'll use Smith's findings to impeach Trump. They believe voters are fed up enough with his behavior that they'll show up to turn the House around, making the midterms a referendum on the impeachment issue. This situation definitely keeps Trump on edge because he can't manipulate how people view the narrative. He can't make Smith's report disappear or silence Democrats from discussing it. His only strategy is to try and secure enough seats to stave off impeachment, but even if he manages to keep the Republicans in control of the House, the evidence remains. Smith's report is out there for good and will haunt Trump politically for years. Each time he claims innocence, his opponents will bring up that special counsel report where he's identified as having committed crimes. Every time he lashes out, that evidence will be right there to counter him. It's clear that Trump managed to avoid prosecution so far because of presidential immunity, but it feels like he's really backed into a corner now. Winning the election allowed him to dodge a criminal conviction, but it's not like he got away scot-free. He just pushed any accountability onto Congress. His entire time in office seems to be colored by the nagging worry that Democrats might gain enough support to actually make him face the music. This is why this situation is so significant. It goes beyond just one report or investigation. We're really grappling with whether a president can engage in wrongdoing and actually face the music. The debate over presidential immunity is about more than just not being charged. It's about whether anyone is truly above the law. And then there's the critical question of whether Congress will step up and do its job when the courts can't hold a criminal president accountable. Looking at Jack Smith's testimony and the evidence he's collected, it seems pretty clear that Congress should take action. They absolutely should. But whether they will comes down to the 2026 elections. This isn't a matter of if they should act. It's a matter of they need to, because Smith's investigation suggests that Trump did commit crimes and sitting idle isn't an option anymore.